10 R&B bands that replaced their singer and got even bigger. What if I told you that the most iconic voices in R&B history were actually replacements? Most fans believe a legendary group dies the moment the lead singer walks out the door, but the truth is far more scandalous. From Earth, Wind and Fire to the Drifters, these titans didn't just survive losing their frontmen, they used those tragedies to build multi-platinum empires and rewrite the record books. Today at Black Excellence Legends, we are exposing the secret history of the great R&B switch-ups. Watch until the end to see which replacement saved a dynasty and tell us who is the one singer no group could ever replace. The Temptations. In the annals of American music, few names command as much reverence as the Temptations. While they were already a dominant force in the mid-1960s, with David Ruffin's raspy, charismatic lead on hits like My Girl, the group faced a volatile internal crisis. Success had bred friction, leading to Ruffin's dismissal in 1968. Many critics predicted that losing such a distinctive frontman would signal the end of their reign. Instead, it triggered one of the most brilliant strategic pivots in entertainment history. The recruitment of Dennis Edwards didn't just fill a vacancy, it completely overhauled the band's sonic architecture. Edwards brought a raw, gospel-infused baritone that possessed a grittier edge than his predecessor. This vocal shift synchronized perfectly with producer Norman Whitfield's desire to move away from polished love ballads toward the burgeoning psychedelic soul movement. The transformation was instantaneous and massive. Their 1969 track, Cloud 9, utilized this new aggressive energy to capture Motown's first-ever Grammy Award, effectively modernizing the label's image for a more socially conscious era. Throughout the early 1970s, the Edwards-led lineup reached commercial heights that eclipsed their earlier achievements. Masterpieces like I Can't Get Next to You and the cinematic Papa Was a Rolling Stone both surged to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. These songs weren't merely catchy tunes, they were cultural milestones that addressed poverty, family strife, and urban reality. Statistically, the group actually secured more chart-topping pop singles during the Edwards era than they had during the Ruffin years. By embracing change rather than fearing it, the Temptations avoided the nostalgia act trap that claimed so many of their contemporaries. They evolved into a versatile institution capable of handling complex arrangements and gritty social commentary. Their resilience proved that the Temptations brand was defined by a commitment to excellence and innovation, ensuring their legacy remained vibrant well into the late 20th century and beyond. Shalamar. In the electric landscape of the late 70s, Shalamar functioned as a fascinating paradox, a group birthed from a television studio that eventually eclipsed the fame of the show itself. Originally assembled as a promotional vehicle for the legendary Soul Train, the trio's initial identity was tethered to the choreographed movements of session dancers. While Gerald Brown provided the vocals for their early efforts, his departure in 1979, due to financial friction, created a vacuum that many industry insiders believed would be fatal. However, the induction of Howard Hewitt, a Chicago-born vocalist with profound gospel roots, catalyzed a metamorphosis that turned a novelty act into a global R&B powerhouse. Hewitt's arrival offered a level of romantic credibility and vocal authority that redefined the group's ceiling. His silky, versatile tenor allowed Shalamar to pivot away from generic disco toward a sophisticated fusion of solar sound, funk, and pop-accessible soul. This shift triggered a gold-certified explosion with the album Big Fun, setting the stage for a half-decade of absolute chart dominance. Between 1979 and 1983, the revamped lineup featuring Hewitt, Jody Watley, and Jeffrey Daniel secured a staggering 3 gold and 2 platinum albums. They didn't just sell records, they became visual icons blending futuristic fashion with Daniel's pioneering street dance innovations. Statistically, their most formidable peak arrived with the 1982 multi-platinum masterpiece Friends. Songs like A Night to Remember and Dead Giveaway showcased a polished efficiency where high-fashion aesthetics met surgical studio precision. Under Hewitt's leadership, Shalamar achieved greater international recognition and higher sales volumes than any previous iteration, proving that the replacement was the essential ingredient for longevity. By the time Hewitt exited for a successful solo career, the band had already cemented its status as a unified brand of excellence. Their trajectory confirms that in the R&B universe, replacing a singer can be a strategic upgrade that elevates a group from a transient trend to an enduring legend. Heatwave. In the competitive arena of international funk, Heatwave stood out as a multinational powerhouse that masterfully fused British studio precision with visceral American groove. Founded by the legendary songwriter Rod Temperton, the ensemble initially soared to global prominence with the velvet-toned tenor of Johnny Wilder Jr. Their debut era was nothing short of miraculous, yielding the platinum-certified masterpiece Too Hot to Handle and the immortal wedding anthem Always and Forever. However, at the absolute zenith of their cultural influence in 1979, a catastrophic car accident left Johnny paralyzed from the neck down. This tragedy would have permanently silenced most musical acts, yet for Heatwave it became the crucible for an unprecedented display of resilience. The decision to persevere was not rooted in commercial opportunism, but in a profound bond of brotherhood. Johnny's younger brother, Keith Wilder, stepped forward from his role as a secondary vocalist to become the group's primary frontman. This transition represented a radical sonic departure. While Johnny possessed an ethereal, soaring range, Keith brought a gritty, rhythmic urgency that leaned heavily into the high-energy demands of the post-disco landscape. His debut at the helm was solidified by the massive success of The Groove Line, which surged to number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, proving to the industry that Heatwave's rhythmic pulse remained indestructible despite the immense personal heartbreak behind the scenes. Statistically, Keith Wilder's leadership ensured the band's survival through a turbulent decade for R&B. The album Hot Property maintained their charting momentum, and the collective continued to command massive audiences across the international touring circuit. By refusing to let the music fade, Keith allowed his brother Johnny to remain involved as a co-producer and spiritual architect, effectively turning the band into a universal symbol of triumph over adversity. They didn't just replace a vocalist, they protected a legacy that has since been sampled by hip-hop royalty and covered by pop superstars worldwide. Heatwave's journey remains the ultimate testament to the idea that a band's spirit is far larger than any individual circumstance. The Manhattans. In the velvet-draped world of traditional R&B and doo-wop-infused soul, the Manhattans stand as a paragon of romantic sophistication and emotional resilience. Formed in Jersey City during the early 60s, the ensemble spent their formative decade meticulously building a reputation for impeccable harmonies and narrative storytelling. Their sonic foundation was originally anchored by George Smith, whose classic soul delivery earned the group a steady, respected following on the R&B circuit. However, just as the band stood on the precipice of mainstream stardom in 1970, tragedy intervened. Smith was diagnosed with a brain tumor and passed away at the age of 30, leaving a void that many industry observers feared would lead to the group's quiet dissolution. The decision to recruit Gerald Alston, a 20-year-old college student with deep gospel roots, became the pivotal moment that redefined their destiny. Alston did not merely fill a vacancy, he introduced a revolutionary level of conversational intimacy and vulnerability to the group's sound. His voice possessed a mature, reflective quality that resonated with a more sophisticated adult audience. This transition catalyzed an unprecedented commercial explosion. In 1976, they released Kiss and Say Goodbye, a cinematic masterpiece that surged to number 1 in both the Billboard Hot 100 and the R&B charts. Statistically, this achievement was historic. It was one of the first singles ever to be certified platinum by the RIAA, selling over 1 million copies and crossing every racial and generational barrier. Under Alston's tenure, the Manhattans transcended their status as regional favorites to become global icons of polished soul. Their success sustained well into the 80s, highlighted by the 1980 smash Shining Star, which reached the Pop Top 5 and secured the group a prestigious Grammy Award. While George Smith provided the credibility and foundation, Gerald Alston provided the permanence and mainstream dominance. By successfully navigating the loss of their original voice and finding a new frequency, the group proved that grief could be translated into something timeless. Their journey remains a definitive lesson in how a lineup change can honor a fallen member while propelling a brand to heights previously unimagined. Earth, Wind, and Fire. In the pantheon of global music, Earth, Wind & Fire represents the pinnacle of sonic ambition, yet their early years were a period of restless experimentation and unformed identity. Founded by the visionary Maurice White in Chicago, the collective initially struggled to find a solid commercial anchor for White's complex fusion of jazz, spirituality, and funk. While the musical foundation was robust, the group lacked a high-register vocal contrast to balance White's grounded, warm tenor. This aesthetic void was perfectly filled in 1972 with the recruitment of Philip Bailey, a young Denver-born vocalist possessing a breathtaking four-octave falsetto. Bailey's arrival was the definitive catalyst that transformed a respected, experimental band into a multi-platinum, global cultural phenomenon. The synergy between White and Bailey created an oppositional dual vocal architecture that became the band's unmistakable hallmark. Bailey's celestial crystalline tones allowed the group to soar into pop and adult contemporary territories without losing their dense, soulful, and funk roots. The statistical explosion that followed is staggering. With Bailey at the helm, the group secured over 90 million records sold worldwide and garnered 6 prestigious Grammy Awards. Their 1975 anthem, Shining Star, clinched their first #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, initiating a golden era of immortal hits, including September Fantasy and Reasons. Bailey didn't just add a voice, he provided the melodic wings that allowed White's spiritual messages to reach the masses of millions. As the decades progressed, Bailey's role evolved from a co-lead to the supreme guardian of the group's musical legacy. When Maurice White was forced to retire from the stage due to health challenges in the mid-1990s, Philip Bailey stepped forward as the undisputed frontman, ensuring the band's continuity and arena-filling status. This transition was so seamless that the group remained a top-tier touring attraction for decades afterward, proving that the foundation built in the 1970s was indestructible. By integrating Bailey's ethereal range and masterful performance ability, Earth, Wind, and Fire escaped the confines of a standard funk band to become an eternal institution of American art. The Spinners. In the fiercely competitive ecosystem of Detroit soul, the Spinners, often recognized internationally as the Detroit Spinners, spent over a decade as a respected but underutilized asset within the Motown machinery. Despite achieving respectable R&B success with G.C. Cameron on tracks like It's a Shame, the group remained perpetually eclipsed by the label's larger-than-life superstars. The seismic shift occurred in 1972 when the quintet migrated to Atlantic Records. Due to rigid contractual obligations, Cameron was forced to stay behind, clearing the path for the induction of Philip A. Wynne. This was far more than a simple roster change. It was a total sonic metamorphosis. Wynne introduced a whimsical, theatrical, and emotionally elastic falsetto that synchronized perfectly with the opulent, sophisticated Philly soul production style of Tom Bell. The impact of Wynne's arrival was instantaneous and statistically overwhelming. Between 1972 and 1977, the Spinners achieved a level of chart consistency that came to define the decade, securing a staggering 7 top 10 pop singles. Their 1974 collaboration with Dionne Warwick, Then Came You, catapulted to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, marking the group's definitive commercial zenith. Wynne's unique ability to blend improvisational humor with gut-wrenching vulnerability allowed the ensemble to transcend the standard vocal group formula, turning songs like Could It Be I'm Falling in Love and The Rubber Band Man into multi-platinum global standards. He effectively rebranded the band into a premier headline attraction that bridged the divide between gritty R&B and polished high society pop. Even after Wynne departed for a solo career in 1977, the group demonstrated their remarkable structural resilience by recruiting John Edwards, whose grounded and warm delivery offered a more stable, mature resonance. This second transition led to another massive success with the 1979 medley, Working My Way Back to You, which surged to #2 on the pop chart. By successfully navigating 2 major lead singer transitions without losing audience trust, the Spinners proved that their brand was built on collective harmony and disciplined musicianship rather than a singular cult of personality. They didn't just survive the loss of a frontman, they expanded their legacy across 3 distinct decades, cementing their status as one of the most durable and successful vocal institutions in music history. Atlantic Starr. In the competitive landscape of late 1970s, R&B, Atlantic Starr was a formidable 9-member ensemble renowned for their technical musicianship and soulful depth. Under the leadership of original lead singer Sharon Bryant, the band cultivated a prestigious reputation on Black radio with hits like When Love Calls and Circles. However, despite their undeniable talent in a string of successful R&B albums, the group remained a best-kept secret, unable to shatter the glass ceiling of the mainstream pop charts. In 1984, Bryant departed to pursue a solo path, a transition that forced the group to downsize and rethink their sonic strategy. The vacuum was filled by Barbara Weathers, a 21-year-old vocalist whose recruitment would fundamentally alter the band's commercial trajectory. Weathers didn't just replace a voice, she shifted the band's atmospheric frequency. Her tone was softer, more conversational, and possessed a crystalline purity that resonated perfectly with the mid-'80s adult contemporary sound. This vocal evolution catalyzed an immediate breakthrough. Their 1985 single, Secret Lovers, soared to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, marking their first significant crossover success. The statistical explosion continued with the 1987 masterpiece, All in the Name of Love, which featured the timeless ballad, Always. This track became a global juggernaut, achieving the rare feat of hitting number 1 on the pop, R&B, and adult contemporary charts simultaneously. With Weathers at the helm, Atlantic Starr transformed from a respected R&B unit into a platinum-selling pop powerhouse. The success of the Barbara Weathers era proved that sometimes less is more. By refining their lineup and embracing a voice that invited a broader audience, the group achieved a level of immortality specifically through wedding playlists and late-night radio that had eluded them for a decade. Even when Weathers eventually moved on the Blueprint, she helped ensured that Atlantic Starr remained a household name. They didn't just survive the loss of their founding lead, they leveraged the change to find the exact frequency that allowed them to speak the language of the entire world, cementing their status as icons of romantic soul. Blue Magic. In the velvet-shrouded corridors of the early 1970s, Philadelphia's soul movement, Blue Magic functioned as the ultimate architects of ethereal, high-register balladry. While their contemporaries often favored raw power or danceable grooves, this quintet specialized in a fragile orchestral elegance that felt almost supernatural. Their sonic identity was inextricably linked to the soaring, bird-like falsetto of Ted "Wizard" Mills. Under his vocal leadership, the group achieved immediate legendary status with the 1974 masterpiece, Sideshow. The track was a monumental commercial success, surging to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topping the R&B charts, eventually earning a gold certification. For a time, Mills was perceived as the irreplaceable heart of the band, the soul magician capable of conjuring their specific brand of melancholic romance. However, the late 70s brought internal shifts and the eventual departure of Mills for a solo career. Many critics assumed that without his signature, high tenor, the magic would vanish instantly. Instead, the remaining members executed a courageous and democratic pivot. Rather than attempting to find a literal clone of Mills, they reconfigured their harmonic structure, distributing lead vocal duties among the existing members to emphasize their collective strength. This transition proved that the group's appeal was rooted as much in their sophisticated arrangements and Philly sound production as it was in a single voice. Post-Mills efforts allowed the band to maintain a consistent presence on the R&B circuit, proving their resilience as a touring powerhouse and a staple of soul radio for decades. Statistically, Blue Magic's ability to sustain a loyal global following without their original frontman remains a testament to the durability of their brand. By leaning into their communal vocal blend, they preserved the atmospheric integrity that fans craved, allowing classics like Three-Ring Circus and What's Come Over Me to endure as permanent fixtures in the soul canon. They didn't just replace a singer, they reinforced the idea that Blue Magic was a shared emotional experience, a mood built on impeccable orchestration and vulnerability. Their journey illustrates that when a group's foundation is built on collective musical excellence, it can survive the exit of even the most recognizable star, cementing their position in the eternal pantheon of romantic R&B icons. The Drifters. In the high-velocity evolution of mid-century popular music, the Drifters established the definitive blueprint for the vocal institution, a conceptual group designed to maintain its prestige regardless of individual personnel shifts. Originally conceived as a vehicle for the legendary Clyde McPhatter, The group underwent a radical structural reorganization under the strict management of George Treadwell, who viewed the name as a corporate gold standard. Their most statistically dominant era materialized in the late 1950s with the induction of Ben E. King. His smooth baritone-adjacent delivery propelled the immortal Save the Last Dance for Me to the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, marking their commercial zenith. However, when King departed in 1960 following financial disputes, many critics anticipated the immediate evaporation of their hit-making magic. Against all industry logic, the subsequent replacements didn't just preserve the status quo, they expanded the group's legendary catalog into new stylistic dimensions. Rudy Lewis stepped into the lead role, contributing a sophisticated urban warmth that yielded masterpieces like Up on the Roof and On Broadway, both of which surged into the top 10. Tragically, Lewis passed away suddenly in 1964 on the very eve of a scheduled recording session. In an unparalleled display of professional resilience, former member Johnny Moore was summoned back that afternoon to record Under the Boardwalk. The track became a global phenomenon, peaking at #4 on the pop chart and becoming their most enduring signature. Statistically, the group secured more combined top 10 hits with Lewis and Moore than during the foundational Ben E. King years. The Drifters' historical trajectory serves as a masterclass in brand durability. By successfully cycling through 3 legendary primary vocalists, each injecting a unique emotional spectrum into the harmonies, the ensemble proved that excellence was hard-coded into their organizational DNA. They navigated a decade of turbulent cultural shifts while maintaining a persistent presence on the charts, a feat rarely replicated in the R&B genre. They didn't merely substitute vocalists, they constructed a legacy so formidable that the Drifters became synonymous with the great American songbook. Their journey confirms that a musical entity can remain larger than life even as the faces change, cementing their position as the most resilient vocal group in history. The OJs. In the pantheon of Philadelphia soul, the OJs represent the gold standard of vocal discipline, rhythmic precision, and social consciousness. While many contemporary ensembles of the 70s functioned as loose collectives, this trio operated as a highly synchronized engine of musical advocacy. Their commercial zenith, orchestrated under the legendary production duo, Gamble and Huff, produced monumental cultural anthems like Love Train and Backstabbers, both of which secured the #1 spot on the Billboard charts. The foundational element of this success was William Powell, whose smooth, dependable baritone provided the structural anchor for Eddie Levert's explosive lead delivery. However, in 1977, the group faced a devastating existential crisis when Powell succumbed to cancer at the age of 35. The decision to persevere was a testament to the group's internal fortitude. They recruited Sammy Strain, a seasoned veteran formerly of Little Anthony and the Imperials, to stabilize their harmonic integrity. Strain's induction was a masterful exercise in continuity over radical reinvention. He didn't attempt to disturb the established sonic architecture. Instead, he brought a refined veteran elegance that allowed the group to transition from youthful chart toppers to the elder statesmen of the soul genre. Statistically, this resilience was validated almost immediately. In 1978, the revamped lineup released Used to Be My Girl, which surged to #4 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming their final massive crossover hit. Under Strain's tenure, the group maintained a dominant presence on R&B radio for another 2 decades. The OJ's historical journey with Sammy Strain cemented their status as a permanent cultural institution. While many of their peers dissolved or faded during the relentless rise of disco and synthpop, the OJs continued to command the charts and fill global arenas with their sophisticated Sound of Philadelphia. Their longevity culminated in a 2005 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an achievement made possible because they refused to let the loss of a founding member diminish their creative momentum. They didn't just find a replacement singer, they integrated a professional choir partner who shared their commitment to excellence, proving that brotherhood and artistic discipline are the ultimate foundations of an immortal musical dynasty. In the competitive arena of soul and R&B, these 10 groups proved that a brand's survival hinges on its ability to evolve through loss. From the celestial heights of Earth, Wind, and Fire to the institutional resilience of the Drifters, Each collective navigated lead singer transitions that could have signaled their demise. Instead, these legendary acts leveraged new voices to redefine their commercial ceilings and artistic legacies. Here at Black Excellence Legends, we believe these transitions were strategic masterpieces. But it raises a provocative question on, can a group truly maintain its soul when its original voice is gone, or are these simply successful corporate rebrands